Hey y'all, it's Happy Good Friday. I'm out walking. I walked down to the Bucky Burn to try and record this for you today. It's a beautiful morning. Sun's not out yet, but the water sounded beautiful as it was flowing under the bridge and the trees in blossom. The problem was there are so many people out walking their dogs today that and they kept stopping. They were like lining up along the bridge, so I wasn't able to do this. So I'm gonna walk for a few minutes and you can listen to me breathe heavy. I think I need to get in a little better shape. But it's a beautiful Good Friday. The sun is just now starting to come out. It's really gorgeous. I know you think I'm unfit, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking with you about the events of Good Friday, not all the early ones. We all know about how Jesus stands before Pilate and what a goofy mock trial that was. How Pilate sends him to Herod, Herod sends him back to Pilate. We all know that story. But we need to focus a little bit on what happens after Jesus gets to Calvary. After Jesus is nailed to the cross, after he's up there hanging between heaven and earth. Jesus created heaven and earth. And suddenly for these hours on that Friday, he's not a part of either one. But it fascinates me that whether we're reading in Matthew chapter 27, Mark chapter 15, Luke chapter 23, or John chapter 19, that Jesus' focus is not on himself. It's on those that are around him. The first thing is he focused his attention on Mary, his mother, that he is worried about her. He's been beaten savagely. He's been forced to walk through the town, being mocked by the crowd, unable to bear up the weight of the cross by himself, and still he manages to focus his attention on the needs of his mother. And he says to the Apostle John, "Son, behold your mother." And to her he says, "Please, behold your son." And we know historically that John took care of Mary for the rest of her life. That when he moved to Ephesus in his old age, that Mary went with him. Now, how cool is that? But besides that, we read about Jesus' focus on the thieves that are crucified with him. How the thief on the cross mocks him. But the one on the other side says, "Jesus, please remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus says, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." And I hope you get the significance of that. I hope you understand that that means that whoever you are, whatever you have done, because of what happened on Calvary, you can be forgiven. This guy had received the death penalty. He's within hours of losing his life. And Jesus says, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." Wow. But he also feels for the crowd. One of Jesus' last phrases was, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." Though they mocked him, though they shouted at him, though they screamed in joy that he's being crucified, he asked God to forgive them. See, the Bible tells us that God is not willing that anyone should ever perish, but he wants everybody to come to repentance. That's how much he loves us. And he feels alone. While he's up there on the cross, his body racked with pain, it's becoming increasingly difficult for him to breathe. See, that's how people usually died by crucifixion was they suffocated because they couldn't get up, they couldn't exhale and inhale properly. It's not so much the pain, that was just kind of a side benefit to those who crucified him. His inability to breathe would cause the crucified victim to die. But instead of thinking about how hard it was to breathe, instead of thinking about the blood that ran down his face, that dripped down his body, he thought about the crowd. And he says, Father, forgive them. But at that moment, when he needs people the most, he realizes that he's got the sin of the whole world. He's carrying the penalty of the sin of every man, every woman, every child who's ever lived or whoever will live. And the Father can't look at it. We read in the Old Testament that God is too holy to look on evil, and his Son, Jesus, God in the flesh, has become sin. And Jesus looks up and he says, my God, where have you gone? Why have you left me? Jesus is all alone. That's what happened on Good Friday. It's Jesus' very last words that John records in the 19th chapter that are the most fascinating to me. That he records his last word as tetelestai. It is finished. That's so much a treasure to us, but it became more of a treasure several years ago when archaeologists were on the island of Elephantine in the Nile River. And they uncovered some mummified crocodiles. That's not particularly amazing in itself because the Egyptians mummified all kinds of crocodiles. They mummified cats and dogs and everything else. But as they cut open those crocodiles, they found that many of them were stuffed with documents, old scrap paper, old trash. And they noticed that some of them were from an accountant. And they had, a bill of sale, and they had the payments that were made. And at the bottom of those payment ledgers was stamped the word, or written the word tetelestai, paid in full. Jesus' last words as he looked at the crowd, as he lifted his eyes to the Father, was the debt is paid in full. And he gave up his ghost and he died. At that very moment, the sun, which was refusing to shine and is just coming out here in Bucky, the sun didn't shine, the earth shook. And even the temple itself began to shake, and God tore the curtain in the temple in two from top to bottom. The way was now open for human beings to come back into a relationship with God that we had lost because of sin. That's Good Friday. The worst day of Jesus' life is the best day of the human race. He bowed his head and he died. Even Pilate was surprised that Jesus was already dead. He had the legs of the two thieves broken, but he heard that Jesus was already dead. See, I don't believe Jesus died of the pain. I don't believe Jesus died from suffocating. I believe he died of blood loss, because every drop of blood that flowed out of his body covered the sin of you, of me, my children, grandchildren, my neighbors, the people that are walking their dogs across the road. That's why I love Good Friday. And that salvation that he offered the thief on the cross is available for you and for me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I know I intend to enjoy it. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. But until then, Tetelestai.